Welcome back to the Live Kid Free podcast. I'm Rachel and I'm your host. Today I want to talk about this sort of interesting and touchy topic of losing friends to parenting. I always have felt this way when my girlfriends get pregnant, but I also feel a lot of guilt and shame about it. I've always sort of internalized that as like just me being an asshole. But actually, the more I sort of listen to what other child-free people say, whether it's on, Instagram or Reddit or probably Facebook, but I hate Facebook and I refuse to go on it. So I'm sure this conversation happens there as well. Just people articulating this sense of like sadness and loss when their friends or family or just loved ones generally decide to have children. There's this sort of initial reaction like, RIP friendship, it's been real, it's been nice knowing you, but like probably never see you again. And it sounds kind of selfish and petty, but it's also very real. Like there's a real sadness and grief associated with really any type of friendship that sort of fundamentally changes for whatever reason, and especially for this particular reason for us as child-free people. So the first thing I want to do is sort of like normalize this and validate it, because clearly like I'm not the only person who feels this way and neither are you. And what I wanted to do with this episode is just sort of like dig into why I feel that way. And I think it's also really important to point out that friendships can fundamentally change or end for a lot of different reasons. Maybe one person gets a really demanding job and is just never around. Or maybe somebody moves far away, and you can't see that person anymore. Maybe that person, gets into a relationship that is consuming and you just don't really see or speak to that person and kind of don't feel like a priority. So yes, when people have kids, it definitely fundamentally changes the dynamic of your friendship. But there are a lot of other reasons that might happen as well. So just wanted to throw that out there. I also think this feeling of loss is probably there for both friends. If one of my friends gets pregnant, I know what I'm sad about. Like I'm sad that I'll see her less. I'm sad that our friendship will be a much lower priority. I'm sad that, she's going to, sort of lose herself, hopefully temporarily, but potentially forever, depending on how it goes. That's what I'm sad about. But I was also thinking, like, what is she sad about? Like, maybe she's sad that I'm not going to have kids and that our kids won't grow up to, like, be friends and go on play dates and have birthday parties together. Like, maybe that's a real loss for her. I don't really know because I haven't had that conversation with my friends. But I think it's possible for someone to feel that way who really cares about me. And like I said, any drastic change in identity or lifestyle or life choice can really tear apart a friendship, but it can actually make it stronger as well. And while it's important to acknowledge that friendships just always change as we get older and as people sort of make different life choices or lifestyle choices or just generally sort of go down different paths, it doesn't make it any less sad just because it's normal. So why are we sad? Like as child-free people, when our girlfriend calls us and says, hey girl, I'm pregnant, and you say, I'm so happy for you, that's wonderful, I know you've been trying. When you get off the phone, you're going to be like, damn, like I'm happy for her, but like this is like what's going to happen to us? This is just what happens. Like this is just what goes through my brain. And I don't think it's because I'm a terrible person. I think it's just because I know what being a mother means and I know how consuming it is and how demanding and how potentially, dangerous to somebody's sort of well-being. So why are we sad? Let's dive into this. And I came up with 3 reasons. And it was actually kind of hard to do this because I feel like it was hard to like bucket all of my thoughts in these 3 categories, but I did my best to make it easier to just sort of figure this out. So thought number 1, I will be a lesser priority for her. This isn't like a debatable thing. Like this is a fact. Like I am not going to be her number 1 priority or her number 2 or number 3 when she has an infant. And even when she has a toddler or a young child or a teenager, like our friendship will never be a top priority for her. And because I won't be as much of a priority, I won't be able to spend time with her as easily. And everything will have to be sort of like scheduled in advance around childcare. And going along with this idea of priorities, which is pretty understandable and straightforward, it really means that like my priorities in my life will be not as important to her. I also have this feeling of my friend won't value me as much. Like I'll just be this like frivolous child-free person, and I won't be sort of enduring this like arduous and beautiful parenting journey. And I just like won't matter as much to her anymore. And in my mind, that means we'll grow apart. I won't be like a relevant person to invite to like kids' birthday parties and all of those kind of activities that she'll be sort of focused on for the next decade at least, which means that I'll be left out. At the end of the day, it feels like there's just not really room for me in her life. And the idea of a friendship not being as high of a priority for a parent, especially a new mom, it's undeniable. Like it's true. I mean, there's just no way that someone who's a new mom can be like, yeah, like I'm totally available and able to sort of spend the same time and headspace and energy on our friendship. Like I can get together on a whim. It's no problem. Like, no, like of course not. And that's totally fine and understandable. But again, like just because it's normal and understandable and makes total sense, it doesn't make it less sad. So I think as child-free people, like we have this idea in our heads that our friends who are parents will sort of like discard us. I think that happens a lot, but it doesn't happen all the time, and it's not guaranteed. Okay, second reason I'm sad. My friend will never be the same. Being a parent changes you fundamentally in every way, shape, and form. And this can be in really beautiful ways, or it can be in terrible ways. I really do think it can go either way. When I think about a friend that I love, I just love her for who she is. And in my head, I'm also thinking, she's just not going to be the same person anymore. Like, what if I don't even like her anymore? Like, what if she turns into a total mom bee and just drives me crazy? Like, what if she treats me like shit because I'm not a parent? Like, what if she judges my lifestyle? Like, there's this fear that my friend as a parent will not be the same person as my friend is here and now today. And while that is true, it's such a fear-based thought pattern that once I actually identified what it was, I was like, oh, that's not cool and also really unfair. But at the same time, it's possible. Like it is possible. So as child-free people, like I think there is this assumption that parenting is like not a great thing. And that's why we don't want to do it, because we see how hard it is and like how self-sacrificing and how it can really destroy people and destroy relationships. Like we see this, like that's why we don't want to do it. Or that's why a lot of us, like one reason a lot of us don't want to do it. When I think about someone I care for and think about like how they'll never be the same again as a parent, like I'm fearful that that is going to happen to them. Number 3 reason why I'm sad, my friend will become a parent. But when I think about a parent, like capital P, I don't always have the most complimentary thoughts. The reality is parents can be really fucking annoying. If they aren't self-aware, combined with like the stress and the anxiety and the fear and just the like existential crises that comes with being a parent, that can really take a toll on somebody. Sometimes that kind of energy is just not really helpful. Like it's not the kind of energy that I want to be around, that I want to invite into my life, that I want to sort of nurture and support. Like sometimes it's exhausting. When you don't have kids, you are kind of critical of parents a lot of times. And I think parents are critical of each other. I think humans are critical of each other. I think like humans, we're all just terrible sometimes. But if you don't want kids and you see parents who are just like not minding their kids or letting their kids like run rampant or scream or just not in control of their children generally, you're like, oh God, these fucking parents, like I can't handle it. And it's like, I don't want my friend to become that. Like, I don't want her to be one of those. She's better than that. Like, I love her and that won't make her happy. So there's this idea, I think, of like losing a friend to parenthood. There's a lot of cool parents out there, don't get me wrong. But like, I also think about like fearful, worried, anxious, sort of stressed out, complaining. Like they love their kids, but they hate them and they feel guilty about it, but they like can't help it. that sort of struggle that like parents all sort of endure, like when they're sort of wearing it on their sleeve and you're sort of a child-free person in that situation where you like understand what's happening, but you can't truly empathize because you're not a parent. It just creates like this distance. And there's definitely this common sentiment among child-free people that when parents complain about their kids or complain about parenting in general, the response is just like, well, this is how it is. Like you made this choice, so deal with it. And yeah, they kind of did make that choice. And it obviously is something that they're dealing with. If one of my close like mom friends or my sister or somebody that I love is complaining or just sharing something really difficult, my first reaction is never to be like, well, this is what you chose. I care about them too much for that. And it's not helpful. And if I want to have a relationship with them, like that's not really the way I would go about preserving that. But there's definitely a culture of parenting. You're either in the parenting club or you aren't. When you're a mom or a dad, you talk about your kids all the time. There are certain topics that are just sort of normal and understandable for any parent to discuss with other parents, but are like kind of weird and annoying for someone who is not a parent. I remember I used to know this girl. She would just like talk about breastfeeding all the time. And I didn't care. It wasn't interesting. It was kind of gross because she was like being gross about it. Like that's not the kind of shit that you talk to your girlfriends about who don't have children. Like it's just not like a topic that they care about or want to hear about. It's totally acceptable for you to talk about that with your mom friends, but with your non-mom friends, it isn't. When my friend becomes a parent, I also recognize that they're going to be talking about their kids a lot, and it will just become a normal part of our day-to-day conversation. As a child-free person who chose not to have children, you have to sort of come to terms with the fact that your friends who have children are just going to be prioritizing people and things that are just not interesting or relevant and not a priority for you. Our relationships change over time because we change over time. We grow, we change our perspectives, we enjoy new experiences or terrible experiences or heartache. And this changes maybe not necessarily who we are at a fundamental level, but it definitely changes how we operate in the world and how we engage with other people. I think friendships that are based on mutual love and respect can and will endure. But just like any relationship, they require commitment and they require work and they require empathy. And I think mutual is the operative word here. Like all relationships change over time, some for better, some for worse, some don't survive. And the only way they can be successful and sort of endure despite all of this change is if there is mutual commitment in that relationship. I mean, this is like why people get divorced, right? Like one person stops giving a shit, the other person gets resentful, like no one's doing any work, the marriage ends. Like this is pretty common. So I think like applying the same logic to a friendship is probably like a helpful way to think about preventing this from happening. I put together just like a few words of advice if you want it. So number one, acknowledge your feelings of fear and sadness and maybe guilt or shame, and forgive yourself for feeling it. Know that it's normal. Know that you're not alone. Know that a lot of other people feel the same. Number two, set new and sort of more reasonable expectations for the friendship, given the fact that your friend is going to have a baby. And this is going to impact the time you spend together, the activities you can do together, what you want to do together. I think having reasonable expectations is a really important way to not get let down. Number three is just be empathetic. Put yourself in her shoes and empathize with her feelings about having a baby. Like, I'm sure she's feeling a roller coaster of emotions. So I think just a simple exercise of empathy and holding space and just like allowing her to have this experience and be there for her is just really powerful. Number four, I think a good exercise is to really sort of think about how important this friendship is to you. Like, is this girl your ride or die? Like, is she someone that is super important to you, that you check in with all the time, that you rely on for support and advice? Like, is she someone who's really, really important to you? Or is she somebody who is just sort of more of an acquaintance or more of somebody that you see on occasion when it's convenient? I think, being selective about who you invest your time and energy in is a good exercise anyway. But I think when your friends become parents, it does kind of force you to look at the friendship and be like, is this something that I'm willing to invest in more because that's what's going to happen? Or should I just kind of fall back and let this one go? Not all friendships are created equal. That's for sure. Okay, number 5. Accept this situation for what it is and accept the fact that for at least a period of time, you won't be important because she will have far more immediate and urgent and like terrifying and joyful, and just all of these challenges are going to be top of mind for her. The baby will always be top of mind for her. And if you understand that and you accept that and you don't hold it against her, you're not going to be upset about it. Okay, number 6, make new friends. I don't know what they say about like one is silver and the other is gold or whatever. You don't have to like kick your parent friends to the curb, but I do think there's a lot of value in just making new friends and just being intentional about the kind of people that you want in your life. As a child-free person, those friendships are going to look a lot different than the friendships that you have with your parent friends. So like pursue that. Get excited about it. Like there's a lot of people who I'm sure would love to spend time with you. And lastly, I don't know if you've read The 4 Agreements, but it's such a powerful book. And one of the agreements that you're supposed to sort of live your life by is not taking things personally. And you can easily apply this to your friendship with your soon-to-be parent friend. Don't take it personally. Like, her having a baby isn't about you. And if for some reason in your head it is, that's not her problem. Like, she's not having a baby to like do something to you or make your life worse or in any way, shape, or form like create hardship for you. So if you're thinking about it that way, I would just really strongly advise you to take some time and just really examine that feeling and that thought and where it's coming from. Because if you don't take this personally, you're going to be free of a lot of those negative emotions. By no means am I suggesting that you should deal with behavior that is hurtful or abusive. You don't need to be somebody's doormat just because they're stressed out about being a parent. Like, it's one thing to be a good friend and be supportive and empathetic and understanding. It's a whole other thing to feel as though a parent is sort of projecting their negative emotions onto you in a way that's like detrimental to you. I think that if you're a child-free person and you want to maintain friendships and make friends with people who are moms because you like who they are as humans, it's totally doable. It's really just about setting reasonable expectations so you don't feel hurt or let down when your friends have to sort of drop everything and attend to their child's needs. If you don't have kids, you have to own everything about it. And sometimes it's easy. Like it's easy to be like, yeah, I'm child free when you're like enjoying a cocktail on like a Thursday night and it's like relaxing and you have peace and quiet or, whatever. Like it's easy to be like, yeah, like I love my child free life. It's not as easy when you encounter like real challenges and the potential of losing people that you really care about because of the simple fact that they are going to be parents and you aren't. So if you're going to really like own your child-free life and be sort of happy and balanced and successful, I think owning your situation and like really owning everything about it, the good and the bad and the ugly, as well as like the easy and the cool and the amazing and the liberating aspects, is really important. Coexisting with parents can be one of the more difficult parts of living kid-free. The negative feelings you may have towards parents or towards your friends who are becoming parents, I think it's really important to acknowledge the fact that those feelings are coming from a place inside of you that is somewhat insecure and fearful about your child-free existence. So just kind of sit with that and like understand what that means and deal with that, because I think that can sort of keep coming up in various circumstances and can sort of haunt you. So not shying away from those negative emotions and allowing yourself to feel them and acknowledge them, and also like figuring out where the hell they're coming from and figuring out how to like manage those thoughts and emotions is really sort of the key to success here. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. It's great to be back. I took a couple months off to like marinate on all of my kid-free philosophies and such. If you want to get in touch with me, you can do so on Instagram at livekidfree. Also, I'm at rachel@livekidfree.com. I look forward to hearing from you, and I'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks for listening to Live Kid Free. Don't forget to subscribe and like for more episodes. And you can always visit livekidfree.com to get in touch with Rachel and check out the blog.